Very important issue. Right now, we still have about 140, 150,000 troops in Iraq. The Bush administration seems to be close to what's called a status of forces agreement with the Iraqi government of Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. It calls the draft agreement, at least, for complete withdrawal of combat forces from villages and cities by July 30th of 2009 and out of the country by December 31st, 2011. If you're elected president, would you as Commander-in-Chief honor this agreement if, in fact, it's formalized?
With respect, Wolf, and you know better, my friend, you know better. It's condition-based. It's conditions-based. And Ryan Crocker, our ambassador in Baghdad, said, if you want to know what victory looks like, look at this agreement. So you know better than that, Wolf. You know it's condition-based, and that's what the big fight was all about.
What's on the table right now?
I've always said we would be out based on conditions and honor and victory and not defeat. And it's very clear to any observer now that if we'd have done what Senator Biden wanted to do, break Iraq up into 3 countries, if we'd have done what Senator Obama wanted to do, which was immediate withdrawal and setting firm dates for it, we'd have probably been defeated in Iraq. And the problem there is we'd have had increased Iranian influence, we'd have had sectarian violence on the increase, and probably we would have had to go back. So it's a big issue for the American people, and I understand why it's not on the front pages or the lead in CNN, because we have a relatively secure environment that's getting more secure.
Colin Powell was pretty biting in his criticism. He said you were a little unsure of how to deal with the economic crisis. You seem to have, he said, a different approach every day. He sensed you didn't have a complete grasp of the economic crisis the American people are going through right now. I wonder if you'd like to respond to Secretary Powell.
Except to say that I'm happy to have the endorsement and support and belief of 5 former Secretaries of State: Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, Jim Baker, Larry Eagleburger, and General Al Haig, and over 200 retired military generals and admirals that have supported my campaign. I respect General Powell, but I respectfully disagree. I especially disagree when he said the comments that he made about Governor Palin, the most popular governor in America, governor, knows energy issues, $40 billion pipeline reformer, took on the governor of her own party. And I hope that sometime General Powell will take time out of his busy schedule to meet with her. I know she'd be pleased to meet with him.
But on the economic issues, his criticism was that you were going back and forth on some of the specific issues, and he didn't like that. He thought that Senator Obama had a consistency in his approach.
All I can do is laugh. We've been very consistent about cutting spending, cutting taxes, and the fundamentals of our economic message. Senator Obama's been all over the place, including wanting to, quote, raise taxes on only the rich, 95% tax cut for 95% of Americans when 40% of them pay no federal income taxes as it is. You know, whatever it is he's changed with. Look at the positions that he held on tax increases when he was first running in the primary, and look at them now. They're vastly different. And the fundamental difference, and maybe Secretary Powell agrees with him, I don't know, but to spread the wealth around is certainly not something that I would ever do.
Do you agree with Ben Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, who said this week, he said that it's now a good time for a second economic stimulus package, seeming to join hands with Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid. Is it a good time to do that, to come up with another $150 billion stimulus package?
I would be glad to look at anything that could be helpful to our economy. I respect Ben Bernanke. I'm sick and tired, and the American people are sick and tired of the pork barrel spending. Why don't we cancel the $18 billion in pork barrel projects that we put in last year at a minimum and use some of that money to help stimulate the economy as well? Instead of bridges to nowhere and projectors in planetariums, such as Senator Obama asked for, he asked for nearly $1 billion in pork barrel projects. Why don't we ask him to make sure that money that was given to pork barrel projects back to helping American families? And then I think that Americans would be more likely to support such a thing. Approval rating in Congress is 9%. No wonder. We've got a $10 trillion debt to our kids.
Let me ask you about that.
$500 billion to China. We don't want We don't want to continue that spending practices, and Americans are sick and tired of it.
But you voted for that $700 billion rescue plan or bailout plan, even though it had another $100 billion or so in unrelated expenditures that some would call pork or earmarks or whatever. Where would you as president draw the line between vetoing that kind of spending bill or accepting it because of the greater good that it also includes, as you decided in the bailout?
I would have vetoed literally every spending bill, even those that I had voted for, if I were president of the United States and made them famous the way Ronald Reagan did. Let's have no doubt about this situation. We've presided over the largest increase in the size of government in the last 8 years than any time in history. So we can take a hatchet and we can take a scalpel, and we can reduce the spending, and we can start by vetoing the normal appropriations bills. We all know that we are in a situation of severe financial crisis, and the Democrats shouldn't be proud of adding $100 billion in pork barrel spending. They should be embarrassed.
But you voted for it, too.
I had to vote for it, obviously, when we are in a situation of huge financial crisis. But we wouldn't be in the crisis we're in if a couple of things hadn't happened. One, $10 trillion of debt, dramatically overspending, increasing the size of government, and Democrats defending Fannie and Freddie and their outrageous practices, which put us into the ditch to start with. The same people that are for the rescue package are the same people that defended Fannie and Freddie, and when some of us proposed legislation to fix it. And so we should have started long ago towards vetoing these bills. When you are in an extraordinary crisis, obviously you have to take extraordinary measures.
We asked some of our viewers to send us some questions, I-reports, as we call them. We got one from Steve Urquhart of Quincy, Massachusetts. He says he plans to vote for Obama, but he considers himself an independent.
Senator McCain, don't you think it's hypocritical for you to be accusing Senator Obama of being a socialist when you also signed on to the $750 billion bailout of our financial system?
Well, thanks, Steve. We all know that we are in a severe financial crisis. And the big mistake that the administration has made now, and the Secretary of the Treasury, is not going out and buying up these home loan mortgages that are bad and give them back to the homeowners at a mortgage rate they can afford and stay in their homes. It was the housing crisis that started this. It's the housing values that are going to start getting us out. During the Depression, Senator Clinton suggested the Home Ownership Loan Corporation, which we did, which was enactment of the Depression era, and we ended up having more money go back to the Treasury. Instead, we're bailing out the banks and other institutions that were complicit in this. So extraordinary circumstances require extraordinary action.
Because you do want to spend...
But it was a failure, and if we'd have done what I wanted done, and what I have fought for reform and transparency and fixing Fannie and Freddie as I did, we wouldn't have been in the situation we're in, and I wouldn't have been faced with the decision of whether to vote for it or not. It never should have happened.
Because you want to use 300 of that 700 billion to buy up what are called these bad mortgages and then try to renegotiate them at a reduced price. So is that
not
too
try
much?
to? It's exactly what we did during the Depression.
But is that
it's not
too much
a new invention.
federal government involvement in the free market system?
Of course it is. But we are in an extraordinary crisis. The homeowners are the innocent bystanders in a drive-by shooting by Washington and Wall Street. Greed, excess, and corruption. So why shouldn't we help? The first role of government is to help people who are in crisis or need. That's why we have government. But if we had not done what we did to set this whole house of cards up, we wouldn't be faced with these situations we have today. I'm proud of my record of reform, taking on my own party. Senator Obama has never taken on his party on any major issue. And that's just a matter of record. And he's the most liberal senator and the biggest taxer and the biggest spender. That's not the way out. We have stark differences.
We have to wrap up the interview, but
sure.
I was reminded walking in, coming here to Manchester, June of 2007. I moderated one of the early Republican debates. You were up on the stage.
You did a great job.
I don't know about that, but there were 8 or 10 of you Republican candidates. And at that point, it didn't look very good, if you remember, for John McCain. Your poll numbers were not very good. There were some formidable challengers.
They were in the tank.
but you came back. We only have a few days left to go right now? Can you come back from what the polls are saying and be elected on November 4th?
Sure, Wolf, and we will, and we are moving up rather significantly. But I think we'll be up late. It's going to be a tough race, but we're working hard, and I'm confident of victory. And by the way, you still ask the best and toughest questions about more than anybody, and so I'm glad to be on with you again.
I'm glad we got through some substantive issues. Senator McCain, thanks very much.
Certainly did.
Good luck.
Thanks, Wolf.